I'd like to call the meeting to order for the Public Works Committee for Tuesday, October 2nd. Can we have roll call and the termination of quorum, please? Here. Thank you. Can we have an adoption of the agenda, please?
To approve.
Those in favor of today's agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion passes. We move in the general public comment. This is a time for members of the public to discuss or express concerns to the committee on any issue, not limited to items on the agenda. Action will not be taken at the meeting on any issue not on the agenda except by placement on the agenda by unanimous vote of the council members present. I have one speaker request form here from Mr. Lettner.
Good afternoon. Thank you, committee, for giving me the chance to speak. I am going to try and make this brief. I am a property owner in the northeast quadrant of Highway 16 in Catron Boulevard. It's basically the only quadrant that hasn't been cleaned up and developed at that intersection. The DOT is going to be constructing an overpass at the intersection of Highway 16 and Catron. As a result of that work and the changing of the highway bed, Tucker Street to the north is going to be eliminated. These parcels are the two that I own. These parcels are all of them that now take access from Tucker Street. As part of the abandonment of Tucker Street, the DOT is going to be constructing a city street, Promise Road, that will be coming down right here. Currently, city sanitary sewer comes along Highway 16 on the east side, and water is on the west side. The DOT is planning to construct Promise Road without putting in water and sewer. For whatever reason, they can build city streets without following the city's design criteria manual, nor get exceptions to that. For the DOT to do their work, they need right-of-way from me as well as construction permits. And when they initially told me they were going to be doing this work, I told them, you are not going to have any problems with me. And when I saw the design, I'm like, well, where's the water and sewer? And they told me that they don't build water and sewer. In fact, they went so far as to design Promise Road without even surveying in the existing sanitary sewer and the effect that that would have for the road grade. And I told them I am not signing off on any street that serves my property that doesn't have the plumbing in the street. That makes absolutely no sense to me. I've talked to Public Works in the past. I'm like, the city does have some tools to facilitate the construction of the water and sewer. I'm like, do an assessed project, or charge hookup fees or whatever. I am willing to pay my fair share so that I got a street that I can use. And that apparently hasn't gone anywhere. At this point, the DOT is ready to begin a condemnation, and I want to get on the record saying that I do not support constructing a city street without water and sewer in the street. I'm prepared to do what I can to help, but I cannot build all this water and sewer for these property owners that I have no tools to recover that capital expense. I know that we can't discuss that. I'm happy to take any phone calls or help that I can get from the city council to push Public Works into coming up with a solution with myself and the Department of Transportation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lettner. We'll close the general public comment period, and we'll now go to consent items 1 through 22. Is there any public comment on the consent items? Seeing none, we will close that. Do any of the committee members have any items they want to pull through for 1 through 22? Councilman Sechrist?
9 and 11, please.
Okay. Any others?
That's it.
Okay.
Thank you.
For the be all right with the rest of the committee, what I'd like to do, get approval for item 1 for the minutes of the meeting. And I'd like to ask, if I could, our Public Works Director to go through each of those items. He's tried to clear up a few questions that I had. And then as he goes through them, we can address any questions that might be on our mind. Does anyone have any? Okay.
Move to approve minutes from September 10th.
Do we have a second? Those in favor, say aye. Aye. Those opposed, motion passes. Mr. Tech, could you read item number 2, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Items, actually, I might kind of do these in small batches, if
That'd be
that's
fine.
okay.
Yep.
Items 2, 3, and 4 are final change orders for projects, infrastructure projects. The first one was water line reconstruction, which also had some street pavement rehab as well as some curb and gutter replacement in it. The increase due to that final change order is additional curb and gutter and patching was done as needed for the project. These types of infrastructure projects, when we get out in the field after the project's been designed, many times there's months that have gone by between the design of the project and the actual construction of the project. We note additional failures in the field. So while we're there, we fix what we can. I consider it added value. We're replacing more infrastructure while we're out there doing the work. And that certainly is the case with items 2, 3, and 4. Slight increases. Well, I shouldn't say slight. On number 3 was a significant increase of about 10%. But once again, we removed and replaced additional curb and gutter as well as pavement with that project. Item number 5 is a roofing project down at our street department. There was a flat roof that was replaced. Part of that roof, once they removed the old roof, there was a concrete slab that was under the membrane. The material that was spec'd would not adhere to that, so we had to make a change to the material after discovering the changed condition there. So that's the purpose for the change order on item number 5. Item number 6, another infrastructure project, chip sealing project with a slight increase, about a 1.5% increase in the contract cost. Some of that had to do with traffic control as well as, once again, additional chip seal or coverage of the roadway by square foot. Item number 7, increase on that. We had a significant water main failure on St. Joseph Street. Blew apart 2 lanes of pavement, curb and gutter, and some sidewalk. Once again, our estimate that we had done on that was a little light, so when we got in there, our on-the-ground team inspectors decided that we should replace some additional sidewalk as well as curb and gutter to make sure we have a solid repair there. Item number 8 is a amendment for a Phase 6 Robbinsdale project. This is Fairmont Street from Elm to Grandview. This change is to get this project to a biddable phase. The preliminary design has been done. This amendment is to, once again, prepare the project for bid. Item number 9, which Councilwoman Sechrist brought up, is a agreement, FMG, for professional services for Skyline Drive from Quincy to Tower Road. This has been on our CIP for a number of years. We are retaining FMG to do all the survey, legal work as far as property ownership, and evaluation of the pavement, roadway alignment, guardrails, utilities, and also any retaining walls as necessary. The historic nature of that road also needs to be preserved, so that's a big part of this project, is to look at preserving the character of Skyline Drive. Item number 10.
Excuse me, Mr. Tuckett.
Yes.
Lindsay, what were your questions on number 9? Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Dale, for our Director Tech, for the overview on this project. I was really excited to see this on the agenda and review the professional service agreement. My question was mostly pertaining to the timeline, just out of curiosity. It didn't appear as though the bidding of the project was tied into this, and so I was just curious what that timeline might look like for phase 1. I did see it was a 3-phase, multiple year project. Thank you.
If I may respond, Mr.
Yes.
Chairman, that's really, exact dates are unknown at this time. We need to get through the preliminary design to really find out where it makes sense to break the project up and what our funding is. Obviously, we're not going to bid the entire project all at once, probably due to funding constraints. So we're going to have to modify and take a look at what can be built in a construction season, where our funding's at. So we don't have dates to that yet. Part of this process that we go through on the preliminary design will actually then determine a schedule for actual biddable projects and construction activities.
Thank you.
Thank you for the clarification. I guess if I could just add to that, what, with regard to the CIP, you had referenced that there was some funds for some time that's been identified for this project in CIP. Do we feel like we have a good majority of future funding for this project established? I know this is a substantial project, is the reason I asked that. So is this a realistic, in your mind, attainable project? And
Well, that's a difficult question to answer. We hope that it is, but we can't guarantee that. There may be additional phases that we can't get to due to funding constraints. Obviously, all of our street construction is fiscally constrained. We don't have enough money to meet all of our needs. This project certainly is needed. The pavement condition is very poor. We'll have to take a look at the priority once we get through the preliminary design to see if we fund it all over the course of 3 years or over the course of 8 years. So,
thank you. If I could just add one final thought to this, for the public record, if we could consider speed bumps or something that might slow the course of traffic, especially in the straightaway on Tower Road, once you're up on top of Skyline. Anyway, thank you.
Item 10, Director Tech.
Item 10 is for some improvements out at our Elkvale lift station. We've had a number of projects come before the council on this upgrade for future expansion for the city. As part of the project, there's some additional coating that needs to be done that was identified as part of the analysis of the lift station. So this contract is an amendment to analyze a coating. Hydrogen sulfide, as you know, is a byproduct of wastewater that is very corrosive. As part of the evaluation, we've determined that with the coatings and other protection that we need to get the life out of this lift station. So that's what the reason behind the amendment.
Thank you.
Item number 11 is an agreement between Long Branch and the city. This is East Talent Street and Willow Avenue. Once again, this is a part of our Robbinsdale area. We've been down in there constructing and reconstructing infrastructure over the years due to aged utilities as well as poor pavement. This is another phase that we're going to be doing. This is for preliminary design, bidding, and construction services, once again funded through our CIP. Item number 12 is a...
Dale,
Yes.
Lindsay had,
Oh, I'm sorry.
no, that's fine. Lindsay?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chair. Appreciate the opportunity to make a couple comments on this. And so this item caught my attention to being that I live very close proximity to this project. And I've been following this for a number of years. I believe it's been on our CIP for maybe 10 years. I could be wrong, but quite some time. And so I was really excited to see and hopeful that this will move forward next year as anticipated. But my question to Director Tech on this particular project is, what is the plan for addressing the stairway leading up to Robbinsdale at the intersection of Burke and East Talent, or Birch Street and the intersection there? I have had several residents in that neighborhood speak to me personally about concerns for safety, and I'm really unclear if that's a city or a school improvement that's needed. It is a really somewhat, it's confusing. It has some caution thrown to the side, some caution stripping, and anyhow, if you could please just clarify if that's also part of this project and if that's a city item priority.
I may have to rely on Michelle Lashley to answer that question. She's stepping up to the microphone right now.
Thank you, Michelle.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me? We are going to work with the school on that. I believe it is the schools, but I think they want to get rid of that stairway. So we're going to work with them during the design phase and make sure that we address it as we need to in the right-of-way. Outside of the right-of-way will be the school. So we'll work with them to see what they want to do.
Okay, it does appear like it could be right away, so I wasn't sure where the sidewalk it might be, just abutting the street, I guess.
Yep.
There are sometimes state funds available for walkways and alternate transportation options for students. And so if that might be something we could assist with, maybe have our grants director look into that through the state transportation plan grant opportunities. I've seen those before. I think it's a real asset to allow students to be able to utilize that to get up to Robbinsdale. Although if at least removing them would at least prevent any potential hazards for our students as it is right now in the condition it's in. And I was, just a note, I really appreciative of you including that Birch Street Bridge as well in this project, which is kind of a shoot off of East Talent, half a block or so. And that is in pretty poor condition. So
Yep.
Thank you.
And I think there are some ADA concerns with that stairway as well, so it's not accessible. So that is something we'll talk to the school about that when we do the design. Thanks.
Thank you, Michelle. Okay, Director Tech, moving on.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Moving on to item 12 is an agreement with FMG. This is our 5-year permit renewal for our solid waste permit through the DANR. Once again, we have to renew our permit every 5 years. I believe there's an application that's due in November to get this in the works to get going for the state to review and to ultimately approve the permit, I believe, in the first or second quarter of next year. Item number 13 and 14 are kind of the same item with two different firms. I guess I would like to also take a moment to acknowledge and recognize all the flood damage that's occurred in southeast United States here over the past week. Unprecedented flooding. As you know, Rapid City has been a victim to that in the past too. So floodplain management is a very important component to our flood insurance program and our greenway throughout the city. This past year, our floodplain manager Mary Bosworth retired after a long career with the city. We have not been able to fill her position. We need professional certified folks to review floodplain development permits. These two are basically retainer contracts for review of any floodplain permits that come in the interim until we can get somebody hired to that is certified floodplain manager to review those permits. So that is items 12 and 13. Item number 14, I'm sorry, I had that wrong. Items 13 and 14 I just spoke to. Item number 15 is our annual bid for snow removal rental rates. For instance, downtown, we don't have the trucking fleet to be able to truck snow out of downtown, so we rely on contractors to do that work. We bid this work every year. Item number 16, once again, a CIP project that's been there for a long time. Deborah Drive, I believe, is over in Ward 5 on the west side. There's a retaining wall that is part of the street structure that's been failing. We need to get that wall replaced before it crumbles onto an adjoining property, and get the street fixed above it as well. Item number 17 is a purchase of a wheel loader for our street division. That is a budgeted item. Once again, will increase our snow removal operations. We need loaders to load salt, sanding mixtures, as well as out and about on the streets removing snow with that equipment as well. Item number 18 is, and 19 are bus purchases. Our Rapid Transit Division is purchasing 2 Dial-A-Ride as well as 2 Rapid Ride buses through a state contract from Washington State. We anticipate those won't be in our inventory for about a year as the lead time on those vehicles. The buses that they'll be replacing are high mileage buses. As you can imagine, they're driven around 6 days a week for 9 hours a day. They will be offered probably for disposal at a city auction, more than likely in 2026. Item number 20 is a lift truck. Through the budget process this year, the city council approved the addition of an FTE in our traffic operations folks, a street light technician, so all the street lighting, we've had a contract over the years for the maintenance of those street lights. We believe we can, not only believe, we know that we can do it cheaper by hiring an individual that works for the city as well as a piece of equipment to perform that work. This is that piece of equipment to accompany the previously approved FTE for that. And then finally, item number 21 is a construction fee resolution. This is in the Wildwood area. There are 16 properties that will have the ability to hook to sanitary sewer. The city council has previously passed a discount, if you will, for folks to hook up to the sewer. We've computed the construction fee for each property would be $12,000. If the homeowner hooks up in the first year, it's only $7,500, and in the second year it is $10,000, and then any time after that it would be the full $12,000 amount. And with that, I'll stand for any questions on the other items I've covered.
Any questions, comments from the committee? Lindsay?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Director Tech. I appreciate the review on all the items. I did have just a quick question on 21, mostly for just clarification on the process. You said that in the past, did you just mention that City Council had perhaps provided a discount for that sewer connection? Is that a recent discussion, or was that from years past?
In the year 2021, I believe, there was a resolution that was passed. We brought that forward for the council to consider that, to incentivize people to hook up and to make it cheaper, to make it, protect their pocketbooks as well. And also, once again, a septic system out there, they're a liability. They're not necessarily an asset, and over time they deteriorate. So while we're doing these sewer projects in areas that are in septic systems, we want to incentivize people to hook up to the sewer.
Yes, absolutely. I completely agree with that. I was mostly just curious on the incentive there. In this particular item, in the detail, it was reimbursing up to $192,000 from my understanding, and that was about half of the total project costs.
That is correct, yes.
And is there a reason why then we just did half of the total project costs assessed back to the property owners, or what's the philosophy there? And it's really, apologies, I just don't know.
Well, there's a couple of things. Some of it is the road replacement. We have to blow the road apart. So the benefit to them is the sewer, not the road. So they're not paying for the road. It's just as when we construct a
I
roadway in
gotcha.
front of everybody's house, we don't charge them for the road. But if it's a new sewer or a new utility, we will charge them for that.
Okay, so we did the 192 was essentially the cost of the sewer and utility.
A good portion of that, yes.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Director Tech, for taking the time to go through those. If there aren't any questions, may I have a motion, please, to approve items 2 through 22? Those in favor of approving items 2 through 22, say aye. Opposed, motion passes. Now, that was the end of the consent calendar. I have no speaker request forms for the non-consent items 23 and 24. And these will be a presentation by the Water Division.
Mr. Chair, I'm Eric Boyd, the Water Superintendent. For item number 23, we did want to announce that the Rapid City Water won the award for the best water in the state of South Dakota at this annual conference in Deadwood in September. So to enter into the contest, you had to be a American Water Works Association member, and you need to not have any state or federal drinking water violations in the past year. So the water was judged based off of taste and aesthetics. So now the Rapid City Water is going to represent South Dakota in the national competition, the best of the best, at the 2025 annual conference in Denver next June.
Thank you very much. It's good news. I'd be curious how people rate the taste of water, because I don't taste anything when I drink water. That's pretty good. Item 24.
So, Mr. Chair, item number 24, I wanted to give an update presentation for the EPA mandated lead service line inventory. So if you guys can think all the way back to last September when I gave a similar PowerPoint expressing that we needed to perform this inventory. So the inventory is based off of the current lead and copper rule revision. So this is a federal requirement that any utility that serves 25 customers or more had to perform this inventory, which is due on October 16th of this year. So just a quick reminder of what a service line is. So the service line is on the left side of your screen, you've got the water main. So that is our public utility. The service line is the smaller line that comes from the water main and goes to the house. So in Rapid City, the service line is owned by the homeowner from the water main all the way into the house. And so the service line inventory was completed by looking at historic records, design standards, service line cards, inspections and customer inspections. And so all service lines needed to be categorized in 4 different categories. The first being lead. The second is galvanized requiring replacement. And so galvanized requiring replacements are galvanized steel lines that at any time may have been downstream of a lead service line. We also have our unknown lines, anything that we could not identify, any materials based off of our survey of records. and then non-lead. And Rapid City chose to identify the specific material when we encountered non-lead. So some quick examples of some of the lines. These would be the lines you'd see the most. Copper specifically is the one we would see the most. That is our preferred material for service lines. The picture on the left is a characteristic lead service line. So lead has that wiped joint. It's a little bulbous material where they connect to a fitting. Galvanized steel there on the top right, that shows the issues with galvanized steel. So as soon as that galvanic protection on the inside wears out, you start getting rust inside the pipe. And so that rust can start accumulating heavy metals, including lead. And if you have a disturbance of the line, all of that rust can get knocked off in one shot and can give a large dose of lead to people inside that household. So the Rapid City inventory, we took a 3-step approach. So I did some pretty extensive digging through historic records and was able to pin down February 14th, 1980 as kind of our first city ban on lead and galvanized steel lines. So our first step approach was if a household and street infrastructure was installed after this 1980 year, we knew that those houses were non-lead. We didn't specifically know what material it exactly was, but we knew that it wasn't going to be lead or galvanized steel, so we weren't concerned about it. Any of the remaining properties that did not meet that criteria, we inspected all of the service cards individually on Rapid Maps. So for every service line, we've got a scanned card that we can access on our Rapid Maps database that oftentimes shows the materials, the locations, other information about the service line. So that was our second step. Unfortunately, a huge amount of the service cards did not have the material type on it. So our third step was we would actually go to the utility maintenance office and we would pull historic permits. So that picture there on the right, that small envelope that's on the corner of the desk, that holds up to 20 permits. So you have to find the envelope with the permit number, pull the actual permit, try to not break documents that are 100 years old while unfolding them, and identify the materials. So this is a representation of the data in the database. So realize that every single service line we have information about the material. I just did a quick filter of the ones that had lead or galvanized requirement replacement within the survey. This also doesn't include every single, there's some lines that are outside of this stretch of this map. So our totals, we're looking at about 109 lead lines that we identified. Galvanized requirement replacement was 142. Realize that there is still some galvanized lines that count as non-lead, because if there was never lead upstream of that, it wouldn't count as galvanized requirement replacement. There's not that same risk of that flush of lead with the rust breaking off. We were not able to find documentation for just a hair under 1,000 of the properties. So for some of those unknowns, we did identify half of the service line. We just couldn't identify what the material was for the whole service line. And then we were fully able to classify a little over 22,000 as non-lead. So the lead service line inventory needs to be posted online for Rapid City. So any utility that serves more than 50,000 customers has to have that online. We've chosen to accept the offer from South Dakota State to host the data on their master service line inventory. So the inventory will be accessible on their website that they set up. It's sdwaterpipes.com, and all of the inventory will be hosted on that for the whole state. We'll also have to submit letters each year moving forward for any of the properties that have identified lead, galvanized requiring replacement, or unknowns. And that includes both the property owner and any renters in those properties. So our first planned release of letter notifications are going to start October 7th, and we're going to release a portion every week until October 28th. So everyone will have to be noticed by November 15th to stay compliant with the code. So some of the content of the letters. So for our customers that have unknown service lines, we'll direct them to go to sdwaterpipes.com. So the state of South Dakota has set up a sampling protocol where you can use a magnet, you can do a scratch test on your service line, and then take a picture based on the criteria in the survey. It should help you identify what type of pipe material you have. But ultimately, that picture is going to help us identify what pipe material is there in the house. If customers have issues performing the survey by themselves, we'll look at having staff support them and try to identify the materials from inside the house. All of the letters for lead, galvanized requiring replacement, and unknown will have a EPA required language about the health effects of lead, and then it also will have recommendations that the EPA put together to limit lead exposure. And so kind of a quick summary of how to reduce lead in drinking water. So the main thing to note is, unlike some other contaminants, boiling water doesn't remove lead. So the lead will stay in water if you boil water. The best things to do is to flush the water outlets that you use for drinking and food preparation. So you can flush a line by opening the faucet and allowing the water to flow until the water stops changing in temperature. So it will get colder over time. Wait until it's cold and a steady temperature. Then you know that you've flushed all of the water out of your lead service line. Regularly cleaning the outlet screens and aerators. So those typically just screw off of the sink. Cleaning those on a regular basis will help eliminate some of the lead impacts. Using cold water for drinking and cooking. So don't try to take a shortcut. If you're boiling some water for some spaghetti, don't turn on the hot water faucet. Make sure your water is cold. Then use cold water to boil for food. And that is especially important for baby formula. If you choose to use, you can use a point of use filter. It just needs to be NSF 61 certified, and those can eliminate any type of lead that's in the water. So what I did want to mention is, so our service line inventory was part of the lead copper rule revision. So that's our current code. In hopefully the next 2 weeks, we'll have the lead copper rule improvements finalized. The upcoming rule is going to obligate that all lead and galvanized requiring replacement lines would be replaced within 10 years after a 3-year period of time to try to identify all of the unknown service lines. So if the code does get issued this October, that would put all of our lead and galvanized requiring replacement lines would need to be replaced by 2037. So on the right side picture there is a piece of equipment that we purchased this year. It's a service line pipe puller. So basically you can pit on each side of the service line and pull a new service line in while you pull out the old line. So this is a lead service line that we pulled out as a demonstration of the equipment by the library. And so this picture on the left is the other pit. So you can see the worker that's bending down. There's a lead service line sticking up there. there's a little device that pulls a cable all the way through the service line. That device grabs onto the new pipe. This new pipe here happens to be a HDPE service line. And then there's a tracer wire that's followed along there so we can flag where that service line is in the future. And so that pipe pulling equipment will just pull a new pipe right behind the old pipe as we pull it out. So if we look at the possible costs, so if we look at the unknowns, there's a good chance that our unknown service lines, there's a better chance that they're lead or galvanized versus an unknown based on the age and of where we're finding those unknowns. So I'm assuming about 50% of those unknowns will be lead or galvanized requiring replacement. So if we estimate that those service lines are anywhere from $7,000 to $8,000 each, that's a total cost of $5.2 to $6 million. So if we look at that as a 10% replacement per year, that's right around the $500,000 to $600,000 per year. So in our current codes, the service line is entirely the responsibility of the homeowner. So there might need to consider establishing a policy to provide funding options for lead and galvanized replacements. There are some grants and loans that are available for replacements, such as the state water revolving funds or community development block grants. But those are not for individual property owners. Those would be something that the city would have to apply for those funds. So our current Rapid City lead mitigation program, so we just did a new sample of lead testing at households that have lead service lines. And so our 90th percentile is 7.3 parts per billion, and the current health level is 15. And so if you guys remember from last year, the 90th percentile is saying that 90% of our samples were underneath that 7.3. So what that's telling us is that based on our water, there's minimal corrosion, which is going to limit the amount of lead that might occur while the water is sitting inside a lead service line. So our water has a naturally basic pH, an alkalinity that has good corrosion control, and sometimes can even deposit a coating on the inside of service lines that will mitigate or eliminate a lot of the opportunities for lead to interact with the water. We also don't allow repairs or partial replacements for lead and galvanized lines. So if they do have a leak, they have to be replaced in their entirety. So our next steps, we're going to want to work with the homeowners of the service lines with unknown materials to help identify those material types. And then once the pending lead and copper rule improvement is issued, we'll develop a replacement plan based on that specific code. If you guys receive any calls about any of your constituents receiving this letter, we've got a communication process in place. So if you just direct them to call the Water Division, we'll have staff that can help them proceed with the process that are outlined in the letter and any questions that they might have. So with that, I'm open to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Eric. I have a question. So will the city be the one replacing those lines, or will subcontractors be used for that?
So, Mr. Chair, the water line replacement plan that would come based off of the pending code would outline that strategy. I think that we have the opportunity to self-perform a lot of the work, and that's why we purchased that pipe pulling equipment. That might not necessarily be what is the most cost-effective or beneficial to our customers. So we'll just have to work through that process once we fully understand what the pending code is going to be.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I just wanted to say congratulations on the 2023 Best Water designation. That's pretty amazing achievement in a time where water is such a valuable resource. I know with the lead copper service line replacement will be a big feat. We had a lot of our Center City older developments included in your map. I guess I would just encourage you, and maybe it's not just you, Eric, but the Public Works Department as a whole to look at what we can do to put together a financial loan package or access some of those state financing opportunities that might be available. Anything that we can do to offset this in those older neighborhoods is going to be really important, just due to many of those properties being rental properties. Sometimes an unwillingness from the owner to replace the materials. And I also was kind of curious in Mr. Pettigrew's comments with, with our equipment that was demonstrated. I thought that's pretty incredible if we are able to take that somehow and utilize that as a benefit to maybe being able to perform that service ourselves, or somehow offer that in a maybe finance package to our residents in some way. I don't know if we could be creative with that and how we might be able to look at assessing those property owners, but thank you. Really appreciate the update.
Eric, I got a couple more questions, sorry.
Sure.
Are we still requiring copper service instead of PVC or not?
My understanding right now that the two acceptable materials are the K-copper or the HDPE.
Okay. And what if a property owner says no, they don't want to do this?
So the upcoming code is likely going to have provisions that we need to offer this replacement up to 4 times. And then any time that it changes ownership past that point, we have to re-engage the owner and offer 4 times to replace the service line.
Okay, thank you, Eric. John?
Thank you. It's a little slow today. So Eric, thank you. I'm glad to hear that you're using HDPE, that you're pulling through that. I mean, that's wonderful after all the discussions we had for years and years and years about whether or not we should be using this in Rapid City. I think it's great that the city's taking the initiative to use it. I just wish that it would have been a little easier when the contractors and the developers and the people that wanted to use it years ago, it would have been a little easier for them to do that, especially since we have a manufacturing facility for this product in Rapid City. But I think it's a great step moving forward, and I want to commend you on that. So thank you. Oh, one more question. You said we can use that. Currently, it's just from the shutoff to the home, isn't it? I mean, we still can't use it from the main to the shutoff, or can we?
If it's my understanding that it's an acceptable material for the main to the house, but unless somebody from engineering. Yep.
That's correct? Okay. Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Lindsay has another question, Eric.
Thank you, Chair. And thank you for allowing me to ask another question. I knew there was something else on my mind here. So as a property owner, say I'm watching this video today and I'm just unsure what my material might be for my home. I wanted to just ask, so inside my home, I know I have a 0.5 copper line where my service comes in for, it's in my basement, but comes into the home. Does that indicate so can I take that to indicate that that's my line is a copper line to the water main?
Generally, yes, that it's likely that it's the same material through there. There is some times where the service line would have been changed in sections from the main to the curb stop or curb stop to the house. But for the most part, especially in older neighborhoods where there've been a water main replacement, typically the main to the curb stop has been replaced as part of those projects so that we don't tear up a road after we've done a road repair. We'll typically replace those service lines in that stretch.
Okay, and my neighborhood was built in the 50s, and since that time, I think there's been at least potentially one major reconstruction. But thank you, appreciate that.
Thank you, Eric, for your presentation.
Thank you.
Okay. Move to acknowledge 20 and 23. Those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. We have a motion to adjourn today's meeting. Second? Meeting adjourned.
That was probably a really dumb question.
What's that gonna do to home sales in older neighborhoods? I got 2 rentals in West Boulevard. I think I'll put the things up for sale.
You know, what I do is I'd go and check.